Guardians of the Plains, the story of Blackfeet. Welcome to another episode of Native Legends and History Stories. Today, we bring you the fascinating origin story of the Blackfeet Nation, one of North America's most influential indigenous communities. Before we begin this journey through time, make sure to like and subscribe to our channel for weekly stories about Native American heritage. Ancient roots. The story of the Blackfeet name holds multiple interpretations that reflect their rich history. While they call themselves Niitsitapi, the original people, or Siksikaitsitapi, English speakers came to know them as the Blackfoot or Blackfeet. The most widely accepted explanation for this name comes from their early migration period, when their moccasins became darkened from the long journey across the prairie lands. Some accounts suggest their moccasins were intentionally darkened with black paint, while others believe the name derives from the dark-colored moccasins they traditionally wore. The Blackfeet Nation wasn't a single unified tribe, but rather a powerful confederation of four distinct yet closely related bands. These bands were the Siksika Northern Blackfoot, the Kainai Blood, and two pagan groups, the Apatosi Pikuni Northern Pagan, and Amskapi Pikuni, Southern Pagan. Despite their geographical separation, these bands maintained strong connections through shared language, customs, and bloodlines. They freely intermarried, participated in common ceremonies, and formed mutual defense alliances. Each band, while independent in its immediate governance, was bound to the others through complex kinship systems and shared spiritual beliefs. The ancestral territory of the Blackfeet held profound significance that went far beyond mere geographical boundaries. Their land encompassed what early scholars believed to be their original homeland, stretching across the vast expanse of the northern Great Plains. The Blackfeet's connection to this region dates back millennia, with archaeological evidence suggesting their presence as early as 10,000 years ago. Their territory was marked by sacred landmarks, each embedded with spiritual meaning. The Rocky Mountains, which they called the backbone of the world, formed their western boundary. Each peak held its own name and sacred story: Morning Star, Poya, Little Plume, Running Crane, Spotted Eagle, Keo, Scarface, El Calf Bolshu, and Curly Bear. At the heart of Blackfeet identity was their distinct language, Siksikai Powassan, a member of the Algonquian language family. Unlike many other Plains tribes, the Blackfeet maintained their own unique dialect, which evolved in isolation from other Algonquian-speaking peoples. While they didn't develop a written system, they preserved their history and sacred knowledge through oral traditions and pictorial records. Their language reflected their deep understanding of the natural world, with rich vocabulary describing spiritual concepts, natural phenomena, and the sacred relationships between all living things. The early Blackfeet spiritual system centered on their belief in the powerful presence of spirits in every aspect of the natural world. They understood their universe as being filled with supernatural powers that could be encountered in natural settings. The sun and moon held particular significance in their belief system, the sun representing life, growth, and warmth, while the moon was associated with nighttime protection and dreams. They believed that everything in nature possessed a spirit, and that these spirits were interconnected in a sacred web of life. Central to their spiritual practice was the concept of medicine bundles, sacred collections of objects that, when properly venerated, could channel supernatural powers for protection, healing, and success. The Badger 2 medicine area exemplifies the deep connection between their spiritual beliefs and their homeland. This region, covering 200 square miles of their ancestral territory, wasn't merely a geographical location, but the very site of their creation story. The Blackfeet maintained oral histories spanning 10,000 years that recounted the sacred nature of this central place, considering it their site of origin and creation. This spiritual geography shaped their understanding of themselves and their place in the world long before any contact with European influences. This ancient period of Blackfeet history laid the foundation for what would become one of the most powerful indigenous nations of the Northern Plains. Their sophisticated social structure, deep spiritual traditions, and strong sense of identity would later help them navigate the profound changes that European contact would bring to their world. Ancestral life, traditional social structure. The traditional social structure of the Blackfeet Nation stands as a testament to their remarkable organizational abilities. Every aspect of their society was carefully structured to ensure both survival and prosperity on the challenging terrain of the northern plains. At the heart of Blackfeet's social organization lay a sophisticated dual leadership system that balanced the demands of war and peace. Each band operated under the guidance of two distinct leaders, a war chief and a civil leader. The selection process for these positions reflected the tribe's values and priorities. War chiefs earned their position through demonstrated courage and tactical brilliance on the battlefield, while civil leaders were chosen for their wisdom, eloquence in speech, and ability to build consensus among the people. This dual system ensured that both the defensive needs and the daily governance of the community were effectively managed. The military societies, known as Anikiks, formed the backbone of Blackfeet social structure. These weren't merely military organizations, but complex social institutions that maintained order and passed down critical traditions. The most prestigious of these societies held significant influence in tribal decision-making. Young men progressed through various societies as they proved their worth through brave acts and honorable deeds. Each society had its own sacred songs, specific dances, distinctive regalia, and special privileges within the tribe. These warrior societies served multiple crucial functions beyond warfare. They acted as the tribe's police force, maintaining order during large gatherings and camp movements. They regulated the communal buffalo hunts, ensuring fair distribution of resources and preventing premature startling of the herds. During the summer gathering of multiple bands, these societies took turns maintaining camp discipline, with each society serving as camp police for a designated period. The hunting bands formed another critical layer of Blackfeet social organization. Each band typically consisted of 20 to 30 families, creating intimate communities of 80 to 240 people. These numbers weren't arbitrary. They represented the optimal size for efficient hunting and camp management. Large enough to mount effective hunting parties and defend against enemies, yet small enough to move quickly when necessary. What made this band system particularly remarkable was its flexibility. Unlike many other tribal structures that were strictly based on kinship, Blackfeet bands were defined primarily by residence rather than family ties. Members could freely move between bands if they wished, a practice that helped prevent internal conflicts and maintain social harmony. This mobility also ensured that leadership remained competent. If a band's leaders proved ineffective, members could simply join another group. Each band maintained its own internal hierarchy, with experienced hunters and warriors forming a council that made important decisions. During winter months, these bands would separate and establish camps in sheltered river valleys, where smaller groups could more effectively sustain themselves. The locations of these winter camps weren't random, but carefully chosen based on generations of accumulated knowledge about wind patterns, access to water, availability of firewood, and proximity to game. The band's organization reflected a sophisticated understanding of resource management. Each group maintained its own hunting territory during winter, but these boundaries were flexible and could be adjusted based on need and environmental conditions. This adaptability proved crucial for survival in the unpredictable climate of the northern plains. The coordination between different bands was maintained through a complex system of smoke signals, scouts, and regular gatherings. During these gatherings, the bands would come together in a massive circle camp, with each band's position determined by traditional protocol. The organization of these large camps was a masterpiece of social engineering, allowing thousands of people to live and work together efficiently. The success of this social system was evident in the Blackfeet's ability to control and defend vast territories against numerous rival tribes. The combination of strong leadership, disciplined warrior societies, and flexible band organization created a resilient society that could rapidly adapt to changing conditions while maintaining cultural cohesion. The spiritual and cultural life. At the center of Blackfeet's spiritual life stood the remarkable sun dance, their most sacred annual ceremony. This wasn't merely a ritual, it was a complex, meticulously orchestrated event that united the entire tribe in a profound display of faith and community strength. The sun dance began with the sacred vow of a virtuous woman, known as the vow woman. This commitment often stemmed from gratitude for a family member's survival from a near-death experience. The responsibilities of the vow woman were extensive and demanding. She had to undergo strict fasting periods, prepare ceremonial foods, acquire a sacred headdress, and master complex prayers that had been passed down through generations. As news of the upcoming sun dance spread, bands from across Blackfeet territory would begin their journey to the chosen site. The preparation of the Sundance Lodge was an elaborate process, requiring the careful selection and placement of a central cottonwood pole, around which the sacred lodge would be constructed. The positioning of every element held deep symbolic meaning, reflecting the Blackfeet's understanding of their relationship with the spiritual world. The actual dance lasted 4 days, during which the participants endured intense physical and spiritual trials. Dancers fasted completely, abstaining from both food and water. They moved in prescribed patterns around the central pole, their movements synchronized with sacred songs and chants that called upon the sun's power. Some dancers underwent voluntary physical trials, including the piercing of their chest muscles with wooden skewers attached to the central pole by rawhide ropes. They would pull against these bonds until the flesh tore free, a supreme act of sacrifice and devotion. Medicine bundles formed another cornerstone of Blackfeet's spiritual practice. These sacred pouches contained objects of immense spiritual power, each with its own origin story and specific ceremonial use. The most powerful was the beaver medicine bundle, used by the beaver men to influence buffalo movements and assist in sacred tobacco planting rituals performed after the first thunder of spring. The transfer of medicine bundles involved elaborate ceremonies where both the physical pouch and its spiritual power would pass from one owner to another. These weren't simple exchanges but complex rituals that could last several days, involving specific songs, prayers, and precise ceremonial movements. The new owner had to learn not only the bundle's contents but the entire body of sacred knowledge associated with it, including songs, stories, and proper handling protocols. Traditional Blackfeet medicine was inseparable from their spiritual beliefs. Illness wasn't seen as mere physical ailment, but as the visible manifestation of evil spirits within the body. This understanding led to a sophisticated healing system that combined spiritual and physical treatments. Medicine men and women gained their healing abilities through powerful visions, where supernatural forces instructed them in the art of removing malevolent spirits from the sick. These healers conducted intricate ceremonies to drive out evil spirits, often culminating in the physical removal of an object from the patient's body, tangible proof of the ceremony's success. Their knowledge extended beyond spiritual healing to include an extensive pharmacopoeia of medicinal plants. This knowledge was typically passed down through careful apprenticeships, where young healers learned to identify and prepare various herbs for different ailments. Payment for healing services often came in the form of horses, reflecting the high value placed on medical knowledge in Blackfeet society. A successful healer needed not only spiritual power, but also profound knowledge of human psychology and natural medicine. They served as both doctors and counselors, addressing both the physical and spiritual aspects of illness. The Blackfeet held a particular reverence for water spirits, believing that rivers and lakes were home to powerful underwater people called the Suyatapis. These water spirits were thought to be the source of power for many medicine bundles and sacred items. This belief was so strong that most Blackfeet traditionally avoided eating fish or using canoes, a custom that many continue to observe even today, despite the abundance of fish in their territorial waters. These spiritual practices weren't simply religious observations, but formed the foundation of Blackfeet society, providing structure, meaning, and continuity to their way of life. Each ceremony, bundle, and healing practice represented centuries of accumulated wisdom, passed down through generations in an unbroken chain of knowledge that connected the Blackfeet to their ancestors and their sacred traditions. Material life. The material culture of the Blackfeet Nation revolved around their masterful exploitation of the buffalo, which they regarded as their staff of life. Before horses arrived on the plains, they developed remarkably effective hunting techniques. The most spectacular of these was the buffalo jump, where they would drive entire herds over carefully chosen cliffs. These sites, known as pishkuns, required intricate knowledge of buffalo behavior and precise coordination among hunters. Skilled hunters would wear wolf skins and use specific movements to guide the buffalo toward the cliff, while other tribe members would create strategic lines to funnel the herd to their fate. They also employed the buffalo surround method, where hunters would stealthily encircle a smaller herd before closing in. Every part of the buffalo found use: meat for food, hides for shelter and clothing, bones for tools, and sinew for bowstrings. The tribe developed sophisticated preservation techniques, including making pemmican, a mixture of dried buffalo meat, service berries, and marrow grease that could sustain them through harsh winters. The women of the tribe played a crucial role in transforming raw materials into essential items for daily life. Their expertise in hide tanning was particularly noteworthy. The process was labor-intensive and required immense skill. Women would stake fresh hides on the ground, methodically scraping away fat and meat from one side before removing hair from the other. They created softer skins by carefully rubbing mixtures of animal brains, liver, and fat into the hides. The process continued through multiple stages of soaking, stretching, and curing, until the hide achieved the desired softness and durability. A woman's status within the tribe was often judged by the quantity and quality of the hides she produced. Blackfeet clothing production showcased their sophisticated craftsmanship. Women created dresses from the most pliable antelope or mountain sheep skins. These ankle-length, sleeveless garments featured intricate decorations with porcupine quills, cut fringes, and geometric designs colored with earth pigments. For winter, they crafted separate sleeves that could be attached to these dresses, along with warm buffalo robes. Women adorned themselves with necklaces of sweet grass and bracelets fashioned from elk or deer teeth. Men's traditional attire consisted of antelope or mountain sheepskin leggings, shirts, breechcloths, and moccasins. Their buffalo robes often displayed elaborate artwork created with earth pigments or plant dyes, complemented by complex porcupine quill embroidery. They wore necklaces made from bear claws and teeth, as well as braided sweet grass, each item holding both practical and ceremonial significance. The teepee, the traditional Blackfeet dwelling, represented a triumph of indigenous engineering. A typical teepee required 19 pine poles, each carefully selected and measuring approximately 18 feet in length. The covering used between 6 and 20 buffalo hides, depending on the size needed. Women owned and maintained these structures, demonstrating their crucial role in housing. They could erect or dismantle a teepee quickly, an essential skill for a mobile society following buffalo herds. Inside the teepee, families created comfortable living spaces with buffalo robe beds and willow backrests. The interior organization followed traditional patterns that balanced practical needs with spiritual significance. The entrance always faced east, greeting the morning sun, while the back of the teepee, considered the place of honor, faced west. Blackfeet women held ownership rights over the teepee and its furnishings, a reflection of their essential role in maintaining the tribe's material well-being. They managed the processing and distribution of food, particularly the critical task of preserving meat for winter use. Their expertise extended to gathering and preparing various plant foods, including prairie turnips, bitter root, and camas bulbs in early summer, followed by service berries, choke cherries, and buffalo berries in fall. The tribe's artistic expression extended beyond clothing, to include painted war records on tipi covers and buffalo robes. These weren't mere decorations but served as historical documents, recording significant events and personal achievements. Artists used natural pigments to create rich colors: yellow from buffalo gall, red from specific clays, black from charcoal, and white from white clay. The geometric patterns and pictographs they created weren't random designs, but carried specific meanings understood throughout the tribe. The Blackfeet also developed a sophisticated musical tradition with specialized instruments for different ceremonies. Their drums came in two forms: a tree trunk drum, with skin stretched over both ends for the sun dance, and a tambourine-like instrument with hide stretched over a wooden hoop for other occasions. They crafted various types of rattles, some made from hide, others from buffalo hooves, each designed for specific ceremonial uses. Single-hole whistles played crucial roles in the Sundance ceremony, their distinct sounds carrying spiritual significance. Years of change: 1700s, 1800s. Early contact and changes: 1700s, 1800s. The mid-18th century marked the beginning of profound changes for the Blackfeet Nation. As fur trappers ventured into their territory, David Thompson, an agent for the Hudson's Bay Company, became the first to provide extensive written records of the Blackfeet in 1787. These initial encounters launched a complex relationship between the Blackfeet and European traders that would transform their society forever. The introduction of new technologies through trade dramatically altered Blackfeet military and hunting capabilities. The acquisition of horses and firearms, obtained through exchanges with white traders and through Cree and Assiniboine intermediaries, revolutionized their way of life. With these new tools, the Blackfeet quickly adapted their hunting techniques and military strategies, emerging as one of the most formidable forces on the northern plains. As their military power grew, the Blackfeet embarked on an unprecedented territorial expansion. At the height of their influence in the early 1800s, they controlled an immense territory stretching from northern Saskatchewan to the southernmost headwaters of the Missouri River. Their military prowess allowed them to push other tribes westward across the Rocky Mountains. The Kootenai, Flathead, and Shoshone were all forced to relocate as the Blackfeet asserted their dominance over the region. Their relationship with traders was complex and often confrontational. For a quarter century after 1806, the Blackfeet actively prevented British, French, and American fur traders from trapping in the rich beaver territories along the upper Missouri River tributaries. They viewed these traders as poachers in their territory, leading to numerous violent confrontations. Their aggressive protection of their resources earned them a fearsome reputation among white settlers and traders alike. The Blackfeet's military success during this period was remarkable. They engaged in conflicts with numerous tribes, including their traditional enemies, the Crow, Plains Cree, Sioux, Flathead, and Assiniboine. However, they maintained strong alliances with the Gros Ventre and Sarcee tribes, creating a powerful military coalition. By the early 1800s, their reputation was so formidable that they were engaging in battles with most tribes who ventured into the northern Great Plains. Population estimates from this period reflect their power. In 1809, fur trapper Alexander Henry estimated the North Blackfoot population alone at 5,200. By 1832, when artist George Catlin documented the tribe, he estimated the entire Confederation's population at 16,500. However, this period of expansion and power would soon be challenged by an invisible enemy that proved far more devastating than any military threat. The trading posts that brought new technologies also introduced devastating diseases to the Blackfeet. A series of epidemics swept through their population with catastrophic consequences. The first recorded smallpox epidemic struck in 1781, followed by more waves in 1837 and 1869. These outbreaks were particularly devastating because the Blackfeet had no natural immunity to these European diseases. The demographic impact was severe. The 1837 smallpox epidemic was especially catastrophic, decimating entire bands. One southern group in central Montana known as the Small Robes Band, and numbering around 2,000 people, reportedly vanished entirely. Their disappearance wasn't just a numerical loss, but represented the erasure of unique stories, traditions, and knowledge that had been passed down through generations. Disease wasn't the only health challenge the Blackfeet faced during this period. The introduction of alcohol through trading posts created new social problems within the community. The combination of epidemic diseases, social disruption, and increasing pressure from white settlement began to erode the foundations of their traditional way of life. Yet even as their society faced these unprecedented challenges, the Blackfeet demonstrated remarkable resilience. They adapted their military and hunting strategies to incorporate new technologies while maintaining their traditional social structures and spiritual practices. Their ability to expand their territory and maintain their dominance of the northern plains, even as they faced devastating population losses, speaks to their extraordinary adaptability and strength as a nation. This period of initial contact and transformation set the stage for even more dramatic changes that would come with increased American expansion and the eventual establishment of reservations. The Blackfeet's experiences during this era, their military successes, technological adaptations, and devastating losses would shape their responses to these future challenges and influence their strategies for cultural survival. The era of treaties, 1855-1896. The relationship between the Blackfeet Nation and the United States government entered a pivotal phase with the signing of their first major treaty in 1855, known as Lame Bull's Treaty, after the powerful Piegan chief who signed it. This agreement marked the beginning of systematic territorial reduction that would forever change the Blackfeet way of life. The treaty forced the tribe to cede an astounding 26 million acres of their traditional land within U.S. borders, though it promised to establish a reserve for their exclusive use. This agreement, which gave the Blackfeet and their allies, the Gros Ventre, much of Montana east of the northern Rocky Mountains, represented the government's first formal attempt to end intertribal warfare in the region. The steady erosion of Blackfeet territory continued with two significant treaties in the 1860s. The 1865 treaty aimed to secure land for the construction of the Mullen Road, a crucial military route connecting Fort Benton in Montana to Fort Walla Walla in Washington Territory. This agreement redefined territorial boundaries and forced additional land cessions. The 1868 treaty followed, further diminishing their territory along the southern boundary. While these treaties purportedly aimed to provide peace and stability, they consistently resulted in the loss of vital hunting grounds and sacred spaces critical to Blackfeet's survival and spiritual practices. Tensions over treaty violations erupted into violence in January 1870, leading to one of the darkest chapters in Blackfeet history. Colonel Eugene Baker, commanding the U.S. military cavalry, led an attack on Heavy Runner's Blackfeet encampment along the Marias River in Montana. This tragic event, known as the Marias Massacre, resulted in the deaths of 173 Blackfeet, predominantly women and children. The massacre occurred despite the supposed protections guaranteed by previous treaties, highlighting the vulnerable position of the Blackfeet despite formal agreements. An 1874 executive order further constricted their territory in Montana, establishing a reservation on the eastern flanks of the Rocky Mountains, adjacent to the Canadian border. The situation for the Canadian Blackfeet paralleled their southern relatives' experience. In 1877, through Treaty No. 7, the Canadian government established distinct reserves in Alberta. The Bloods received nearly 350,000 acres, the North Blackfoot over 178,000 acres, and the North Piegan more than 113,000 acres. This division of territory marked the formal separation of the northern and southern bands of the Blackfeet Nation. By 1888, facing increasingly dire circumstances, the Blackfeet were compelled to sign what became known as the Sweet Grass Hills Treaty. This agreement established their present reservation, including lands in the eastern portion of what would become Glacier National Park. However, even this reduced territory wouldn't remain intact. In 1896, the U.S. government forced the tribe to cede the mountain lands that would become part of Glacier National Park for $1.5 million. This transaction separated the Blackfeet from lands that held profound spiritual and cultural significance, including the sacred Badger II Medicine Area. The implementation of the General Allotment Act of 1887 brought another wave of land loss. Between 1907 and 1911, reservation lands were divided and allotted to individual tribal members, a process that proved devastating to communal land holdings. Significant portions of excess lands fell into non-Indian ownership. The tribe lost over 200,000 acres during this period due to their inability to pay taxes, with approximately 30% of the reservation falling into non-Indian hands. This fragmentation of tribal lands disrupted traditional communal living patterns and weakened the tribe's collective economic base. The most catastrophic impact on the Blackfeet came not through treaties, but through the deliberate destruction of their primary food source. For 3 decades after their first treaty, the Blackfeet had steadfastly refused to abandon hunting in favor of farming, maintaining their traditional way of life. The U.S. government's response was to support the systematic slaughter of buffalo herds, viewing this as a way to force the Plains tribes into adopting an agricultural lifestyle. By 1883, the once vast buffalo herds were nearly extinct, leaving the Blackfeet facing an unprecedented crisis. This crisis culminated in the devastating Starvation Winter of 1883-1884, marking the most tragic period in Blackfeet history. Nearly 1/4 of the Piegan Blackfeet population in Montana, approximately 600 people, perished from hunger during this brutal season. The tragedy was particularly bitter because it resulted directly from the deliberate destruction of their primary food source, combined with the government's failure to provide promised supplies and support. Witnesses described scenes of profound suffering as families struggled to survive with virtually no food resources. Many died in their tipis or attempting to reach the Indian Agency for supplies that never arrived. The impact of this traumatic winter extended far beyond the immediate death toll. Survivors were forced to accept a fundamental change in their way of life, abandoning their traditional hunting practices for farming and ranching. The loss of so many tribal members, particularly elders, meant the loss of crucial cultural knowledge and traditional practices. The Starvation Winter thus represents not just a humanitarian tragedy, but a turning point that forced the Blackfeet to adapt to an entirely new way of life. The cumulative effect of these treaties, land cessions, and the buffalo's destruction transformed Blackfeet society completely. Their once vast territory, which had supported a thriving hunting culture for generations, was reduced to a fraction of its original size. The proud nation that had controlled the northern plains was confined to reservations, forced to adapt to new boundaries and an entirely different way of life. The period from 1855 to 1896 represents not just a series of land cessions, but the systematic dismantling of traditional Blackfeet life, forcing them to rebuild their society within the constraints of the reservation system. Rising Nation. The modern era of the Blackfeet Nation represents a remarkable story of adaptation and resilience. Following the devastating events of the late 19th century, the tribe embarked on a dramatic transformation of their economic foundation. The transition from their traditional hunting lifestyle to agriculture and ranching marked the beginning of a new chapter in their history. By 1915, the emphasis had shifted decisively from farming to ranching. The Blackfeet adapted their traditional knowledge of animal management to modern cattle ranching. Today, 80% of their agricultural land is dedicated to raising beef cattle, which generates 80% of farm income. The reservation also maintains smaller numbers of dairy cattle, bison, horses, sheep, hogs, and chickens. Of the 245,530 acres used for growing crops, only 32,158 acres are irrigated. Their main crops include wheat, barley, and hay, with smaller amounts of oats. The tribe's economic base has diversified significantly with the discovery and exploitation of natural resources. The region's oil potential was first revealed in the spring of 1903, when San D. Sums made the first commercial oil discovery in the Swift Current Valley, just west of the Blackfeet Reservation in Glacier National Park. Sums, who was originally searching for copper ore, found pools of oil while cleaning out his workings after blasting in 1902. This discovery would eventually lead to extensive petroleum development in the region. Petroleum and natural gas leases on tribal lands have since become a major source of income. In 1918, too, the reservation boasted 643 producing oil wells and 47 gas wells, providing substantial revenue for tribal development. This resource wealth led to significant initiatives. On April 30, 2010, the Blackfeet Tribal Business Council (BTBC) greenlit 3 major initiatives totaling $5.5 million in revenue from oil exploration payments by Newfield Production Company. These initiatives included a $200 per capita payment for all 16,500 members, initial funding for a new grocery store in Browning, and over $1 million for land acquisition within the reservation to reclaim property under tribal control. Tourism has emerged as another vital economic sector, capitalizing on the reservation's proximity to Glacier National Park. The tribe has developed various tourism initiatives while carefully balancing economic opportunities with cultural preservation. Additionally, the establishment of the Blackfeet Indian Writing Company's pencil factory in Browning demonstrated their commitment to industrial development. However, economic challenges persist. The reservation's remote location has contributed to persistently high unemployment rates. As of May 2016, the Montana Local Area Unemployment Statistics Program reported an unemployment rate of 11% on the reservation. More strikingly, in 2001, the Bureau of Indian Affairs documented a 69% unemployment rate among registered tribal members, with 26% of employed members earning below the poverty guideline. The tribe has developed innovative solutions to address these challenges. Many members have found seasonal employment as wildfire fighters, a significant source of individual income. In 2000, approximately 1,000 Blackfeet worked as firefighters, including the elite Chief Mountain Hotshots team, bringing in $6.1 million that year. Parallel to economic development, the Blackfeet have made remarkable strides in preserving and revitalizing their cultural heritage. In the present day, the Blackfeet community is actively dedicated to safeguarding their heritage, which encompasses their languages and land rights. The establishment of the Blackfeet Community College in 1976 marked a significant milestone in educational development. By 1985, the college had achieved full accreditation and now serves as a vital center for both academic education and cultural preservation. The institution offers programs in both traditional academic subjects and Blackfeet language and culture, helping to ensure the survival of their heritage for future generations. Education initiatives extend beyond higher education. The tribe has implemented Head Start programs in primary and secondary schools that teach both the Blackfeet language and traditional cultural values. These programs serve not just children, but also adults through neighboring colleges, strengthening the community's connection to their heritage while addressing contemporary challenges. The North American Indian Days celebration, held annually on the Powwow grounds near the Museum of the Plains Indian in Browning, stands as a testament to the vitality of Blackfeet culture. This festival, the largest Indian celebration in Montana after Crow Fair, brings together tribal members and visitors for authentic cultural celebrations, featuring traditional dances, music, and ceremonies. It serves not as a tourist attraction, but as a genuine expression of living Blackfeet culture. In 2020, around 35,000 people in the U.S. identified as solely Blackfoot, while about 300,000 others claim Blackfoot and other Native American ancestry. By 2023, there were about 25,000 registered members of 3 Blackfoot groups in Canada. Piikani Nation 3,915. Siksika Nation 7,713, and Blood Tribe 12,896. The modern Blackfeet Nation has produced numerous notable individuals who have made significant contributions across various fields. Earl Old Person, who served as tribal chief and political leader until 2021, became one of Montana's most esteemed individuals. James Welch emerged as a prominent novelist, skillfully portraying Native American experiences in works like Winter and the Blood and Fool's Crow. Eloise P. Cobell made history by identifying mismanagement of trust land fees and initiating a class action suit that resulted in a $3.4 billion settlement from the federal government. The tribe continues to play a crucial role in environmental preservation, particularly in protecting Montana's Rocky Mountain front, which holds paramount significance in their sacred legacy. Recent population estimates in the early 21st century indicate approximately 90,000 individuals of Blackfeet descent residing in Canada and the United States, demonstrating the nation's resilience and growth. Today's Blackfeet Nation stands as a vibrant community, successfully balancing modern development with cultural preservation, even during periods when their traditions faced prohibitions, such as the Sundance. They persevered in keeping their cultural practices alive. Their story continues to inspire as they forge ahead, maintaining their identity while adapting to contemporary challenges. Thank you for joining us on this journey through the remarkable history of the Blackfeet Nation. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe to Native Legends and History Stories for more fascinating tales about Native American heritage.